Right guys, thank you for joining me again. We are finally installing the skirting. I've actually been in this room for a little while, but little snagging bits are getting longer on the list, as you can imagine. But we are going to be doing the skirtings and the architraves, so the door reveals and things like that. Relatively quick one. So this is the style of skirting I've gone for, and I've got 5 lengths of 2.1. Which is going to do the whole skirting area, and then I need to do the reveals around the door and also possibly the window, but I might leave the window. There's a number of methods that we can use to cut the skirtings, because we've got to do the corners, we've got to mitre those, and then also the connecting lengths. I'm not really an expert in skirting at all, but what I have been advised in the best options is, when doing joins, not to cut them straight, but cut them at an angle and connect them, because it will look a lot smoother. And then once we do the corners as well, there's a number of ways to do it. You can either cut 2 90-degree angles, and that will give you the point that you want. But the problem with it being is, if your room is not 100% square, which we have here, and you'll realize that this wall is not 100%, so it's out by about 2 mil. So that is about 2 mil wider than the 90 degrees, and this side is about 2 mil shorter, 2 mil tighter, so it's quite tight. And obviously what that means is, when pulling this wall, I should have pulled this side in a bit more, which would have racked it a bit cleaner, but you know, you can't tell, and I don't care. So with that said, there's 2 ways of cutting it. You can use a block like this. This is a cheaper method if you don't have, say, a circular saw or a chop saw, mitre saw. Then getting a block is a great way of doing it, but it's not the best way. And the reason I say that is because when you stick your blade in, the gap is slightly wider, so your blade is not always going to be 100% correct. And if you've got a wooden one, over time you can start to wear out the corners, and it just opens up the gap. So not always the best way. And as I said, especially if your walls are not 100% square, then it's going to cut it square, and yeah, it's just not going to work all the time. So what I'll be doing is, I'll be using the mitre saw to do all of my corners. It's a bit overkill, but I think it's perhaps going to be the best way. So we'll get the mitre saw out, and then we'll do that. But alternatively, if you don't have a mitre saw, get a block. This one I think was about £6 or £7. It's a Ronseal one. I think I got it from Screwfix, one of those DIY type shops or builder shops. Right, but the best way to do corners is to use one of these. If I put that to the corner here, so as you can see, we line it up to 0. I can then put that to the corner here, open up this angle here, and obviously I'll do it at the bottom where the skirting is, because this angle may be slightly different at the bottom, but then it gives me the exact angle that I need. I can then just lock that in place and then transfer that measurement over to my chop saw. It's going to be pretty there on out, but as you can see, it's out slightly there. So that will help us get the measurement that we need in order to line it up. Right, so I'm currently fitting the skirting. I've done this section here and that last section there. I want to minimize the echo and any sound traveling through that area, so I'm just getting rock wool, cutting it down to a nice sort of thinner section, and then just placing it in there. Because it's a soft material, if there's any expansion in the timbers, it'll still be fine because it's not being compacted too much, but it just helps minimize the noise. Now, it might not actually do anything. I'm not fully convinced that it will do anything, but I'd rather kind of get it in there just to help assist in minimizing the sound. So because it'd just be a hollow echo space behind it essentially. So yeah, just doing that, and then once I've completed that all the way to the end, I can then fit my skirt in, and I know that there is minimal sound draft pulling through, and just draft in general. So yeah, I'm going to continue to do that. Might be pointless, but I'd like to over-engineer if possible. Right, so to adhere the skirting to the wall, I'm using Sumo Grip Invisible. This actually came with the cladding. I had some left over, and it seems to be really good stuff. So I'm just going to continue using it. Many different ways of applying the skirting. Some people use nails. You then need to go over it, but you can just use a bit of this. Just dab it. Doesn't need to be a massive amount, as you can see, and then just apply it to your skirting, to your wall even. And then if it's a large section that flexes, you want to get something quite weighty. So over there, as you can see, I've used the sub box and just laid it flat to compress it to the side and hold it on, but this bit will be fine. And then what I can do is then do the same, marry these two corners up, and then wait for that to dry. Then I'll do the next piece again. So as I said, I just literally dab it, or just do squiggly line. Just make sure it's gonna bond in all sections really. It's just got a nice grip. Happy with that. Make sure there's no debris or nothing in the way, stopping it from getting a nice tight seal. And just marry that bad boy on. Happy with that. So that is that section done. This is an internal wall, so I might not put this in. I don't think it's necessary per se, because there's obviously a double barrier, but definitely on the exterior walls. So I'll wait for that to dry. I'll crack on with that one next, and then I can do this one. Yeah, I don't really think it's necessary in here, because as I said, it's an internal wall. So just marry that up. Actually, I might do this back one now and then just put a weight on it. I don't see why there's any reason it's not gonna adhere. So what I'll do is, this is slightly pulling, so I'm gonna put a weight to hold that corner, and then a weight to hold that corner, just till it dries, and that should be fine.